And in this corner, also hailing from the Mythic Legion's assembly, the Gold Knight! Those who are about to rock salute you!
You think maybe he's compensating for something?
As is the man beneath the armor, my pride is shattered! Hello my friends, welcome back to Player Display. Today let's have a look at the seriously amazing Gold Knight 2 from Mythic Legions. So this figure, not so easy to get. He actually taught me that not all Mythic Legions are created equal. So the last figure that we had to look at from this line was the Gladiator, and he's pretty accessible. As for this guy, not quite as much. Apparently he was released in a pack of 6 other figures, kind of similarly to the McFarlane Batman pack, and that was exclusively to one site, and that disappeared pretty much instantaneously. Ow, my knuckles there. And I did my research, and it seems like he's only going to show up one more time on single release, and that's only going to be for one site. So I decided, you know what, screw that, I'm not going to wait for it, I'm just going to get him on eBay. He's such a beautiful chunk of shiny cheddar. I had to have him on my shelf, and he really is a standout with my other warrior characters I'm trying to assemble. So anyhow, enough lollygaggling, let's get right into the box. As one might expect, for the most part, it's pretty much the same box that we can expect with all the Mythic Legions figures. Pretty standard at the front, you got the usual deco in the back, Mythic Legions down here, you also have the insignia that indicates the faction that this figure comes from, and I forgot to show off the sides of the Gladiator box, but this time I will not do that. Over here, we actually have a bio for this character, and my one complaint about this packaging is that I am very bad at reading the font, but regardless, you do get a bio here that is a little bit on the small side, but you can read up a little bit here if you like, if I can get that full thing and frame for you. And then this, of course, is the Gold Knight 2 Legion builder. That's because there was a Gold Knight released in the past, but that one lacked, an additional helmet that this one comes with, and I believe the paint apps are also different. I'm not sure what other differences there are. If you know any of the others, please let me know in the comments. Off to the side, we have a really beautiful looking lion logo over there. Kind of wish that came on the shield. I think that would have been very neat. I think if they came with decals, I think that would be very interesting. If we push on out to the back, we have a different deco over here from what we saw with the Gladiator. No idea what this big old circle over here is. It kind of came with the box, so no idea there. We also have some other offerings from Mythic Legions off to this side, which I can only imagine are the other figures that came with that set, although I just got the Gold Knight, so he's the only one that we will be looking at today. Going on down, we have a bio for the entire Mythic Legions universe, which I'm still yet to read because, again, I am very terrible with reading this font. Now, even though I've had this figure for less than 24 hours, already I'm pretty much calling this guy one of my top 10 figures of the year. There's just something about this figure that does it for me. I just love having this knight, which first of all is a knight, which is really cool to have for my shelf. And second, he's totally emblazoned in a pewter gold, which looks absolutely beautiful. And in terms of a character, that just makes me imagine that the guy under here must be extremely arrogant. He must have been the guy who has all the accolades. He gets really cocky, and that leads him to get in a whole bunch of trouble. So, I don't know, just something about having a golden color palette for this knight just really adds to the storytelling element, which I love a lot. And all that being said, objectively, he's a great figure. If you put all my assumptions and predispositions as to who the guy under the armor really is aside, everything here really is fantastic to look at. I don't, of course, have the version 1 of this figure because, firstly, he's very elusive, and I just started collecting Mythic Legions recently, but I can speak to the figure that we have here, so again, any variations, let us know in the comments, but let's go ahead and start with the very first head sculpt, because he does have 2 head sculpts, or rather, helmet sculpts, I suppose, and this is a very awesome, classic-looking knight helm. It reminds me a lot of a Lego figure I had way back in the day. I don't think I do anymore. That's also a gold knight, with also a blue plume, which we will take a look at. So this is a removable piece that you can also plug onto the top of the helmet right there. And that's pretty much the profile that you're going to want with this figure, and he looks absolutely stunning. Well, first of all, let's go ahead and talk about the gold itself. You will notice that it's not a stark, shiny, or chrome gold. It actually has a wash, which I was not expecting. With the Gladiator we looked at before, one of my main critiques is that he had a great lack of paint, which is okay. This is a figure line that encourages you to customize. That's something I did do with him. We'll have a look at him later in size comparisons. But over here, they actually gave this guy a little bit of a gray-brown wash to bring out some of the crevices, the bolts. the little ornate designs that are carved throughout, and really just everything about this guy looks absolutely phenomenal. You also have the two islets up here. There are no eyes to be seen behind there. It just gets pitch black, but still, I love the anonymity that he has. It just makes him a little bit more mysterious and makes you think about him a little. Like, where did he come from? Why does he have this armor? He also has two big, bulky shoulder pads, which are removable. In fact, they come removed when you first get them in the packaging. So if we go ahead and pull these off, it's very simple. Just like the Gladiator, if we flip him around, he has two peg holes at the top where they hinge in, and also this additional slot here if you have any other accessories in your bin to plug into him if you want. But if you just want to pop those right back in, easier done than said. Just go ahead, line up the pegs, pour them right in, no issue at all. Not that he really needed it, but I also gave him some hot water in case anything was a little bit loose or a little bit stiff, but everything should be in the shape that it should be, except for one piece I will talk about a little bit later. Going down to the rest, there's not a whole lot I can say except it's a knight in golden armor. I don't know what you'd call every single piece of this armor that he's wearing because it's very specific and I just wouldn't know. But everything here feels very knight looking. I love the gold that it has all the way through, uninterrupted, even down to the chainmail and the elbows right here, if you can make that out. So there's not a dot of silver anywhere to be found. That's something I could do customizing wise. Maybe I could do like silver bolts or something like that. I'll think about it. But as he is, I think he's an absolutely stellar piece. Now, when we get down to the waist, this is the one flaw that this figure has, and that is that the crotch flap here is a little bit warped. I dropped him in boiling water, and even that wasn't enough to straighten it out. So that's just the way the figure came. There was nothing like pushing up against the figure in the packaging because it's very open. It's a very collector-friendly bubble in the plastic. So I don't know why this is coming up the way that it is. I tried heating it up, as I said, but nothing really put it back down. But really, it's not a really big deal because I'm not going to have him stoke like this. He's going to be moving around, which he does very well, by the way. We'll talk about articulation soon. One other thing that I noticed about this figure is that even though he has a unique paint job, the sculpt is not completely. We do see some reuse from the Gladiator that we looked at in the past. This arm has been reused, as has been most of this leg sculpt over here, but that's totally okay. In fact, you can go ahead and bring my Gladiator now. Let me go ahead and remove his shield, and you can see all the custom paintwork that I did, which is really fun to do. I highly encourage you do that with some of your Mythic Legions figures if you're considering getting some for yourself. But over here you can see that they pretty much have the exact same arm off to the side, right there, from shoulder to hand. But as for the legs, as you can see, the calves are different, but the thighs are the same. You got the same knee pad over here, and the same guards going all the way down, and even the same boots, even though, of course, the knight does not have an interchangeable pair of bare feet, but they do have the same boots right down here. But honestly, because the paint is so different, and because we have the helmet to contrast him from the Gladiator, I have no issue with reuse here. If he feels like his whole unique experience, I don't feel like anything's being reused unless I closely inspect him. Everything here feels like it's its own unique character, and for me, that's where reuse is okay. As long as you got the paint, you got a new head sculpt, you pretty much have a whole new character, so no issue for me whatsoever. Moving on to accessories, the first thing we have is the version 1 helmet over here, which came with the first release of this figure. This helmet over here that we have is actually the new thing that makes this the Gold Knight 2, but over here is the original Crusader style helmet that he came with before. I honestly love them both. I mean, I definitely prefer the version 2 one a lot more, which is why I got the figure, and also it's somehow, in a strange world, more affordable than the first release, but you can go ahead and pop off the head. And then this is a little minor thing that does bug me a little bit. You are able to pop off the head, no problem, but it comes off with the neck, as you can see here. They have a shared neck piece. So when you want to swap out the heads, it of course pops off towards the base of the neck. Then you got to remove the neck from the head sculpt you had initially, and then you can go ahead and pour that back onto the base body right here. You can actually notice there's this little floating piece right there, which I found pretty interesting. It doesn't remove though, so it's just pegged into the back. It floats a little bit. Might enhance articulation, not totally sure. But anyhow, you can pour it on the neck, and you can go ahead and get the alternate head and pop that on, which looks fantastic, and he also looks really cool. I almost want like that Harry Potter chess set, that's kind of what this figure reminds me of, because obviously you had knights and queens and stuff like that. But anyhow, you can also go ahead and remove the beautifully done blue plume, which we didn't really look at before, but we can go ahead and push in. You can see it also has a black wash of swords to bring out those wrinkly details and the feathers. And then you also have a porthole at the top of the helmet, so you can slot that in here as well, which is not my preference. I actually prefer the plume to be outside of this helmet and in the other one, but it's still something else you could do, and he still looks very good. So that's not an issue there if that is your preference, but it is not mine. Returning to the neck, that's where I have another issue. When I try popping this head off, of course it'll come off with the neck as it did before, but for this helmet over here, it's a lot more bucket-like, which makes it a lot more difficult to actually remove the neck. So you kind of have to hit the sweet spot, like kind of pinch your fingers around the sides and sort of push it out. And it does hurt a little bit, but eventually it does come out. So it's not the worst thing, but it's a little bit annoying. Just have nice dry fingers. It should come off no problem. Go ahead, pour it on the neck, pour it on the initial helmet we had before. Go ahead and get the blue plume, pop that back in, and we have our version 2 knight once again. So it's nice to have those options, and it is cool to have that extra helmet. Then that could be just on the ground, maybe like after a long battle. This is one of his fallen brothers who got beheaded, and then here we are. We got this version 2 knight looking absolutely spectacular. Moving on to other accessories, we also have this really beautiful broadsword done in a pretty cool silver. You can pop that into whatever hands you like. So let's go ahead and slot this in this right. I'm a righty. I don't know, I just prefer my knights to be righties, which is no issue. But a very good looking sculpt, pretty standard, nothing too crazy, which is totally fine. Part of me almost wants to see the blade in chrome. I think that would be very pretty to kind of match that regal aesthetic that this figure is going with. He also has a shield, which is, for me, a little bit on the disappointing side. As you can see, it's just straight up silver, which I find a little bit plain. Not even battle damage, except for that little nick in the paint, which I can go ahead and fix. I wish it had battle damage or some sort of logo or scratches or something, but then again, it's a good canvas in case you want to do something with it. The grip is removable, kind of like what we saw with the Gladiator before, so you can have that at any angle you wish. Let's gotta go ahead and pop that on. And to get that in his other hand is no problem whatsoever. Just slot that right in. And there we go, looking really sweet. I actually do not mind that this is like a pristine looking character. They just got this brand new shield they probably just got off the racks. So I'm kind of okay with the fact that he has no weathering or any detail work on the shield. But at the same time, I feel like this is a guy who's so skilled that maybe he doesn't require a shield whatsoever. Maybe he just needs a sword and he's good to go. Look at that, he's so good. That's one of the things I love about these figures. I mean, I only own 2 from Mythic Legions at this point in time, but I love the fact that it doesn't take a whole lot to get them in some really good poses. And as I was saying that, I was getting him into another pose to hold his final accessory, which we have actually seen already with the Gladiator, which is this very long spear. Before it was kind of done in a gunmetal gray, but this time it's done in the same silver that was done for the sword and also the shield, all the same sheen, same paint and everything. And again, it's got a good canvas here if you want to add any blood or damage or scratches or whatever it is you want, a little bit of weathering. And I've actually never put this in his hands before, but seeing that the Gladiator shared the same hand, I would not be surprised if it went in like no one's business, and you can hold that spear just fine as well. And there you go, looking really sweet. I friggin' love this figure. He's really cool. Here we are at articulation, which is honestly not that different from the Gladiator. In fact, it is, in some sense of the word, a little bit improved. But let's go ahead and start with the head sculpt. You do have a swivel in the plume if you wanted it to move a little bit with the wind, actually. That doesn't look too bad, to be honest with you. But you do have a little bit of head tilt right there. Got a little bit forward. You got a great amount back, which is actually pretty surprising. If you use this helmet, of course, it would be a little bit restricted, but let's go ahead and test that out. There goes the neck. All right, let's pause for a second. I'll just swap them out. Actually, no need to pause. It's pretty quick to just slap on the other one. But if you have this helmet on, then you can just go down a little bit. It gets a little stuck on the bottom chin portion of that helmet. Can go back quite a bit. Also has your tilt. And also swivels like no one's business. As for the shoulder pauldrons, they do have a swivel over there, so of course that allows for more arm movement. They swivel all the way around, and of course they're the exact same mold, unlike the Gladiator, who I keep mentioning. I apologize, but he's the only reference I have to go off of. As for elbows, single jointed, they stop shy of 90, unfortunately, but I feel like maybe if you wanted to, you could remove this little piece right here, and it would have a little bit more range. Kind of reminds me of those original Black Series clone troopers, where there's kind of this little plastic portion inside the elbow that stopped them from going all the way up. So that's something you could do if you wanted to. I might experiment with that. I could just glue it back in if I don't like the result. You do have an elbow swivel as well. A swivel in the hands right there. Oops, just pop that hand out. That's okay. Just pour that back in. Again, very modular figure. So if something falls off, just pop it back on. You're good to go. As for hinges, they both hinge in and out. Oh, and you also have a swivel right here above the gauntlet, which is always good to see. As for the torso, you have nothing at all up here in the pec area, which is totally accurate. And, oop, there goes a shoulder pauldron. Just pop that back in. As for the ball joint over here where the waist meets the rest of the torso, you have a little bit back. You got to push it a little bit, though. Much better amount forward. You got your tilt. You have swivel 360, looking great. As for the legs, I actually love one joint in here that I want to put some attention on. You have a a thigh swivel over here, which looks really good, but it is also very seamless. You can see that as I move this leg, you can't even see the joint that's inside there at all. It kind of just moves with the armor, which I think looks absolutely beautiful. I love that a lot. But moving on to the rest of the leg, kick forward to, I think that might be past 90, isn't it? Yeah, he's got a lot of space there. And going on back, also great. These are probably the kings of moving the legs forward and back on an action figure I've seen on this channel so far. As for the knees, they got a 90 kickback. They also have a little bit of swivel there if you want. As for the ankles, you got that far back, that far forward, and you also got some royal rocker. This figure is so much fun. If you have the means of getting him, highly recommend him. I also totally forgot to mention this last accessory, which I don't even plan on using, which is why I totally forgot it. We do have this little sling here for his sword that you can also put around the torso, so you can slot that in his back if you really wanted to, but I don't like it as much. I feel like it kind of impedes on the gold armor design, so I will be leaving that out, but that is another option for you. But anyway, so that being said, here we are with size comparisons for warriors across the ages, and from Harryhausen flick perhaps. Over here we have the Gladiator skeleton from Epic Hacks or Vitruvian Hacks at Tomato Tomato, it's all the same thing. And over here we have the Gladiator, my highly customized one from also Mythic Legions. And then over here, a figure we have not looked at yet being the Whoosh Toy Samurai, who I wanted to get to see how he'd scale up, and apparently he is very short, so we'll go ahead and talk about him in the near future. Not totally sure when, but put him on your bucket list. We'll get to him eventually. And last but not least, we have our usual friend, Mechamuck!
Now some of you may die, but that is a sacrifice I am willing to make.
Wait, sacrifice and die? Yeah, that's not something I'm willing to do. You can take your bucket back, you golden boy.
So, is it historically accurate to have an English knight fighting a Greek gladiator? The answer, who cares? I'm really falling in love with this line, with each figure that I get. I know I only have two, but really the figures I've gotten thus far have been so exciting and just a lot of fun to play around with. I think it really helps that they are kind of their own offshoot line. There's no situations that they specifically must be in, because they're not characters from any IPs or anything, like Star Wars, Marvel, DC, or whatever have you. They're just simply the characters that they are, and then you're only restricted by your imagination from there. Again, I picture this guy to be a very cocky bastard, but that's just the only thing that comes to my mind. That's a story that I like to build around him, and that makes him a ton of fun. Kind of the same thing goes for the Gladiator down here. I figured he's sort of a soldier who's on his last knees, and he was forced into the gladiatory arena when he wasn't wanting to. It's just a lot of fun to build stories around these characters, and then not only that, but once you pose them up, which is very easy to do, you can get them into whatever scenarios that you want. I find that it takes very little effort to get this knight into a really awesome power pose or slashing or stabbing pose. I just feel like there's a ton of things that you can do with not just this figure, but just with Mythic Legions. The articulation isn't the greatest, in the arms at least, but when you get down to the legs and the waist, everything really just swings around to do whatever it is that you need them to do. Like over here, we have this execution at the end of a very fictionalized battle, but it's just really neat that you're able to even get that far. And that's thanks to articulation, the historical accuracy of the sculpts that really make you really buy into the scene. It's just, these figures are great. They're so much fun. I know I'm kind of reviewing Mythic Legions now, less so the figure itself, but that doesn't take away from him. I think he's an absolutely beautiful figure that you can kind of take for face value. He's a gold knight. It's really that simple, but at the same time, once you got him in your hands and you really fiddle around with him, that just makes him all the more exciting. Like, you know what? This guy deserves a little bit more attention. Let me pan out for a minute here. So here we have him in his standing pose, right? Well, I'm going to go ahead. I'm just going to fix everything up here so suddenly he's in a really sweet looking power pose. And it takes very little effort. Like, bring the blade down there. Get the fist up or something like that. Maybe he's pointing forward. And then you can get the legs really down, which is totally crazy. Fix up the boot a little bit. Swivel in the thigh. And there you go. And then look at that. Instantly, we have a new situation for this character. He's pointing forward, he's challenging someone, something like that. Like, I don't know what it is about these figures. I just feel like they hit a perfect balance that allows them to be in whatever situation you want. Like, I'm not sure why I haven't said that about a Star Wars or superhero figure up till this point. I guess it's because maybe they have faces and that kind of constricts them, but because these guys have helmets, that makes it a lot easier to get them doing whatever it is you want them to do. But then it's also the sculpt, the paint, the articulation, the figures kind of welcoming you to customize them, add whatever it is that you want to them. In this case, I don't think I'll be adding much to him, but what he already has is already pretty phenomenal. It's just, yeah, they're really great. I really love these figures, hope to be getting more. Again, this guy, he's a little bit harder to find, but if you're able to get him, do it. He's really good. And also, there's other knights in the wave. From these two figures that I have in the line thus far, I'm a fan. Like, it took that little time. I really enjoy this line, and I'm really excited to kind of start up this next chapter in my collecting life. I think these are an interesting, not really departure from what I've been collecting before, but just a new shelf to have, and it really is thrilling. I'm very excited to see what comes next from them. They're kind of going to be the foundation for who's going to complement them next. Know what I mean? We had the little samurai over there. He's a little too tiny. We had that Kumodel Toys wolf, who I think would fit in really well with them. Just all these other third-party figures I think would balance these guys out really awesomely. And just create a really neat-looking miscellaneous army section of my collection. So that's pretty much all. What do you guys think about Mythic Legions? Have you collected them before? Have you been collecting them since the Kickstarter? Let me know what your experiences are in the comments. These guys are just a total blast. A lot of fun to have, a lot of fun to play with, and display with. I think these guys are the epitome of the title of this channel. Like, really, that's the trophy that I'm awarding to Mythic Legions. They're so goddamn cool and amazing and awesome. I am very entertained indeed. So thank you guys very much for watching. I think that's going to be a close. If you enjoyed this content and enjoyed content from the past and are hopefully hoping for more in the future, then please, as per usual, be sure to
Like, comment,
Ring the bell to be notified of our latest arrivals. And subscribe. This is the editor speaking, humbly reminding you to support the pod Patreon in the description to guarantee new content every single week.
Thank you guys very much for watching. Rock on, and I will see you all later.